He was loud, wild, hilarious, and for a while, he was everywhere. In the 1970s, Jimmie Walker wasn't just a sitcom actor, he was the sitcom. His oversized smile, jittery energy, and iconic Dy-no-mite catchphrase turned him into an overnight sensation. But what happens when the role that makes you famous also traps you? When your biggest success leads to decades of silence, isolation, and controversy? This is not just the story of J.J. Evans from Good Times. This is the rise, fallout, and quiet endurance of Jimmie Walker, the man behind the laughter, the fame, the politics, the silence. And why, at 78, he's still standing on stage, still chasing the laugh. Can a boy born into poverty become one of the most recognizable faces and voices of 1970s television? That was the reality for James Carter Walker Jr., better known to the world as Jimmie Walker. Born on June 25, 1947, in the Bronx, New York, Walker's early life was far from glamorous. He grew up in the projects of the South Bronx during a time when poverty, crime, and systemic inequality were daily facts of life. His family struggled to make ends meet, and like many inner-city kids of the era, Walker's life could have easily gone in a much different direction. But something else was growing in him. A sharp wit, a deep love for performance, and a desire to be heard. While attending Theodore Roosevelt High School, he found an escape in the classroom, specifically in radio engineering, which he studied through a government-funded program. He even worked for WRVR, a jazz station in New York, as a technician. But something wasn't clicking. By the late 1960s, Walker began trying his hand at stand-up comedy. He performed at nightclubs, college shows, and anywhere that would hand him a microphone and a few bucks. His act combined street-smart observational humor with wild, high-energy punchlines, and it started to catch on. He was soon appearing on popular variety shows like Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In and The Jack Paar Show, earning a name for himself as a young comic with big potential. Then came the break that would change everything. In 1974, Norman Lear, the groundbreaking television producer behind All in the Family and Maude, was launching a new sitcom called Good Times. The show was a spin-off of Maude, focusing on a working-class black family living in a Chicago housing project. Walker was cast as James Evans Jr., better known as JJ, the eldest son in the Evans family. His character was fast-talking, artistic, goofy, and always trying to hustle up a better life. Within just a few episodes, Walker's portrayal of JJ stole the show. Audiences loved him, his quirky dance moves, exaggerated facial expressions, and above all, his booming, exaggerated catchphrase, Dy-no-mite, became an instant sensation. It wasn't just a laugh line, it became a cultural phenomenon. You could hear Dy-no-mite echoing in playgrounds, schools, comedy clubs, and households across America. JJ had become the face of Good Times, and Jimmie Walker, seemingly overnight, had become a star. But fame has a price, and behind the cameras, all was not well. While Good Times was breaking ratings records and bringing black family life into American living rooms, not everyone on set was thrilled with the show's direction. Especially Esther Roll and John Amos, who played JJ's parents, Florida and James Evans. The original intent of Good Times was revolutionary for its time. A sitcom that dealt honestly with the struggles of a black family in the inner city. It tackled issues like poverty, racism, gang violence, and the importance of education and family structure. Roll and Amos were deeply committed to this mission. They saw themselves not just as actors, but as representatives of a community rarely shown with nuance or dignity on TV. But as JJ's popularity skyrocketed, the scripts began to change. More jokes, more physical comedy, more Dy-no-mite. Esther Roll was vocal and furious. In interviews, she criticized the way JJ was being written, saying the character had become a caricature, reinforcing negative stereotypes of young black men as lazy, unserious, and foolish. John Amos agreed, warning that the show was drifting away from its core values. The tension behind the scenes grew unbearable. First, John Amos was let go from the show after the third season. Officially, it was creative differences. Unofficially, many believe his outspoken criticisms led to his exit. Roll hung on for 2 more seasons, but eventually left as well, citing the same frustrations, that Good Times had become less about a real black family and more about making JJ the punchline. Throughout all this, Jimmie Walker kept quiet. He rarely addressed the controversy. He was still young, still new to fame, and focused on riding the wave of success. He didn't speak out about the tension, not until decades later, when he was 78 years old. In recent interviews, Walker finally opened up, admitting that he stayed silent during the height of the show's internal conflicts because he didn't feel it was his place to challenge the producers or rewrite the narrative. He acknowledged the pain his co-stars felt, but remained unapologetic about doing what he was hired to do: deliver laughs. But J.J. Evans wasn't the only side of Jimmie Walker that made headlines. As he entered middle age, Walker began speaking more openly about his political beliefs, and they were not what most people expected from a black celebrity in Hollywood. He publicly supported conservative Republican politicians, including Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. On multiple occasions, he voiced his admiration for Reagan's economic policies and strong leadership. During Trump's rise in the 2010s, Walker expressed support for many of his positions, arguing that Trump spoke honestly, something Walker claimed was missing in modern politics. But it didn't stop there. Walker criticized affirmative action programs, calling them unnecessary. He spoke out against same-sex marriage. These statements placed him squarely at odds with much of the black entertainment community and alienated him from younger fans who once admired his comedic legacy. While some saw him as a contrarian, unafraid to speak his mind, others saw him as someone who had lost touch with the community that once lifted him up. The controversy didn't destroy his career, but it certainly changed the way many saw him. One of the most fascinating and often overlooked parts of Jimmie Walker's story is how private and unconventional his personal life has been. Despite decades in the public eye, Walker has never married. He has no children, and he's been open about the fact that this was not due to lack of opportunity, but rather a conscious choice. He said in interviews that he simply never saw himself as the marrying type, that his lifestyle and career didn't lend themselves to long-term commitment. Yet his name still found its way into the gossip columns. In the mid-2000s, a bizarre rumor began to circulate that Jimmie Walker was dating conservative firebrand Ann Coulter. The two had been seen at events together, and both were known for their right-leaning political views. But when asked, neither confirmed nor denied a romantic relationship. Walker called her a friend, and Coulter joked about the speculation in her usual sarcastic style. To this day, no one really knows what their relationship was, and maybe that's exactly how Walker wanted it. After Good Times ended in 1979, the red-hot spotlight started to cool off. Unlike some of his co-stars, who transitioned into dramatic roles or successful stage work, Walker struggled to find his footing in Hollywood. His association with the JJ character was so strong that casting directors often passed him over, assuming he couldn't play anything else. But Walker didn't quit. He returned to his roots: stand-up comedy. He toured the country, performing in small clubs, community theaters, and casinos. For Walker, comedy wasn't a step down, it was home. He often joked that while the pay wasn't great, the love from fans never faded. Over the years, he made occasional TV appearances, a guest spot here, a cameo there. He showed up in Scrubs, Everybody Hates Chris, and even game shows like Match Game. None of these gigs brought back his old level of fame, but they kept him in the public eye. And in 2025, at the age of 78, he appeared in a little indie comedy film titled Forgotten Fortune, a fitting name for a star whose legacy, while complicated, remains unforgettable. So where is Jimmie Walker now? He's still performing, still touring, still making people laugh. He lives modestly, without the trappings of fame or fortune. His estimated net worth sits somewhere between $800,000 and $1.5 million, a far cry from the millions earned by today's sitcom stars, but enough for a comfortable life. He's reflective, often philosophical in interviews, but still as energetic as ever on stage. And to this day, when he steps into a club or a fan spots him on the street, they don't call him Jimmie. They shout, "Dy-no-mite." If you found this story compelling, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the real stories behind your favorite stars. Drop a comment with your favorite Good Times moment, or tell us, do you think JJ helped or hurt the legacy of the show? We'll see you in the next one.